Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to ICT Academy, it's a privilege being amongst all of you here today. I understand that almost 80% of the audience here is from the academia, senior people from colleges and institutions and principals of educational institutions. I'm going with that premise. I just want to check with all of you, maybe a bit of an explanation. How many of you in this room are active in Facebook and WhatsApp? Can you just put up your hands, please? Thank you. I've tried this in several forums. The percentages, depending on the audience, is anywhere between 20 to 30%, when the average age group of the people in the room is about 30. And when you try this with any group which is less than 30, you get 100% of people putting up their hands. And in occasional cases, when it's 99%, the other person is actually doing some work on his smartphone. There's a commercial advertisement which is going on in the newspaper, in the televisions these days. I know many of you would have seen this, on the age gap and the generation gap between father and son, and how the son goes ahead and does the work so efficiently on a smartphone for some bill payment that his dad is getting hassled with. The reason I picked up this to check with all of you is, if the youth of this country today is all focused and prevalent in social media, in groups, all of us as people in the academic world, it makes enormous sense for us to be in the same space as where our students are. If we continue to be where we are, and the students who are tomorrow's leaders are in another space, the disconnect gets to become very, very acute. We heard earlier speakers also earlier in the session talk about change. And I was wondering to myself, it's not very far in history. We don't need to go back 20 years or 30 years. If you just take the last 7 years, 7 years before, we are in 2014. In 2006-7, if all of us were to sit and be discussing the future of, let's say, industry academy partnership in education, we were then in 2005-6 in a world which had no LinkedIn, which had no WhatsApp, which had no cloud computing, which had no 4G, which didn't have the ubiquitous Facebook. I'm sure at that point of time, each of us would have been extremely comfortable to say that the world is going to be the way we are. And for all of us who did not accept the change, sadly, we get left out. Today, it is inconceivable that we can operate in a world where there is no WhatsApp or a link. So it is important for us as people in the academics to change. And to change based on the way the youth are changing, change in the way the industry would like them to come in and work for them. We also heard earlier in the day regulatory constraints on UGC, AICT, etc., which is all very true. But having said that, I think each of us, as we run our colleges and institutions, can look at ways which are entirely within our control on how do we equip our students when they pass out of our institution to become that much more relevant and relatable to the industry in which they would eventually go and work for. We heard Rakesh speak earlier, talking about his acronym of PIC and the type of innovation that he wanted to do, the amount of performance emphasis that he's doing. Industry sits in a world which is fairly cruel. The CEOs of industry in listed companies have a shelf life of 3 months. 2 consecutive quarters, they do not do well. You see there is a churn in that happens in that organization. So clearly, the expectation from them is to have people who will hit the ground running from day one. So what can we do? Some illustrative examples that I thought I'll share with all of you today. As we get our students to pass out, I'm told many of you are from the engineering colleges here. You run engineering colleges or your professors from engineering colleges. While we should continue to teach them the knowledge of those basic programs that they have come in for, whether it's mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or civil or whatever programs that the children are doing in your colleges, you could also look at a bunch of certification programs. So imagine when the IT companies go and hire today in 20,000s and 5,000s and 10,000, large numbers that they hire. They are very little to choose between person A and person B. So almost everybody comes with a good CGPA. Everybody has got good academic and scholastic achievements. But if there is a choice given to them that, all things being equal, there is this bunch of students who have got a certification, let's say in supply chain, in finance, in something on basic engineering, in something on basic coding, doesn't matter on what subject it is. If we start offering a certification opportunity which brings the connect between industry and the academic, the probability that the transition will be smoother to these people and that they will hit the ground running faster than what they would have otherwise done is very important. The second dimension which I just wanted to leave as a thought with you is that while there is structured internship programs that we do for our students in our colleges, end of second year or end of third year, we tell them that to go for an in-plant training for a couple of weeks to get an industry exposure. We have to put our hand to our heart and say how many of us as teachers and academic heads have last visited industries to get to understand what their need is. We should start having a program of teachers getting into internships in certain periods of time and certain frequencies with industry, where then the understanding and appreciation of what the industry has or needs, as academics we understand better, and we also get an opportunity to explain to the industry on what are the ways in which we are training and educating our students, and how is it that they can participate to make this process that much more successful. Two last things that I wanted to say in the interest of time. One is, there is this thing called Blue Ocean Strategy. I'm sure many of us have read this book. I heard earlier in the day about the number of engineering colleges that have come up in Tamil Nadu and in the southern part of India. NASSCOM continues to say that the large number of engineering students and the mismatch between employability of these students. So everybody is sort of on a catch-up game to see how do I get this done. So if each of us decide that I am going to specialize in a niche, that I will have my university students beside their basic program also get into some subject matter expertise in area A, B, and C. And then there's another cluster of universities which talk of X, Y, and Z. The opportunity for your students to get into a better job opportunity or get into the employment arena much better would be there, rather than every one of us competing for the same pie. While this is all from the academic side, the last point really that I wanted to bring up from my perspective and as an example of what we are doing back in our company, we run as Manipal India's largest banking training academy. An initiative that we started 5 years back with one of the leading private banks, where the chairman and the leadership of the bank took this leap of faith, and they said that we want to ensure that people who join us as officers are trained and competent to discharge their responsibilities from day one. And they had another interesting objective. They said when we are going to hire the A towns, which is the A-class cities, the Bangalores, Mumbais, and Chennais, and Delhis are running out, we want to go to B, C, and D towns. So they had to disperse. So we went about, picked up these students from we started with a small cohort of 60 students with this particular bank and put them on an intensive domain training of 9 months with soft skills. So students from remote, rural, and small towns, the Salems, the Trichis of the world, as compared to, let's say, Chennai's and Bangalore's, as smart, as intelligent, as bright, but they had inhibitions about getting into public speaking, they had inhibitions about perhaps language, they were more comfortable in their mother tongue. They got an opportunity to get into mainstream. Over the last 4 years, this 35, 40 cohort of officers has grown up to 10,000 officers today. I have 15 banks which is taken this as a matter of getting trained. So I see this as a huge example of a commitment from the academic and the corporate joining hands to hand. The curriculum is designed in consultation with the bank. The faculty immersion programs are done with the bank. We have senior people from the bank coming, taking time out and teaching the students. The extent of commitment that you have from them is one single reason for this program to be successful. So my belief is that if something like that can happen in one industry in one limited way, there's no reason why it cannot happen in many other places. So essentially, to sum it up, we are sitting, every conference, everywhere all of us go, we hear this term about demographic dividend. India is going to be huge on demographic dividend, etc. But end of the day, it's like that old fable and poems that we heard when we were young, when there's rain, rain everywhere, but not a drop to drink. We'll have huge amount of people. But if we don't channelize these students and make them more industry ready, we're going to have a problem of, on one side, unemployment going in a very large way, and the other side, there's an unrest of students who are there and they don't get jobs. But some of these thoughts, I just wanted to leave it with you. Thanks again for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. All the best.